They were also afraid that the white woman may come to like having sex with black men, and they saw the white woman as the weaker sex. You know, they were the weak link. The Morant Bay Rebellion of 1865 and the brutal suppression that followed has some eerie similarities with what is now taking place in the Gaza region of Palestine. When black people decided to fight back against their oppression, they were met with such brutality that even the white leaders in Britain were appalled at the cruelty that was carried out on the island. Over 400 black people lost their lives, and some of them were executed and their bodies hanged in public so that it would send a strong message to anyone else who dared to rebel against the white minority. Not only does this mirror the public execution of the Palestinian people that we are witnessing on our screens every day, but the ideology behind it is eerily similar. The main ideology that was used to justify slavery and the continued subjugation of the black race was that the African was inherently savage, that he had an innate nature that made him prone to insurrection and rebellion. After Governor Eerie was removed from the island for his brutal reaction to the rebellion, you know, Paul Bogle was hanged and George William Gordon was hanged. But still, many Europeans came to his defense. And, they contended that the nature of the Negroes that he was dealing with called for extraordinary measures and that he had acted appropriately in the mass execution of the members of the black population who he felt had either taken part or had instigated the rebellion. John Tyndall was a physicist, a professor, and a philosopher, and he was a member of a defense fund set up for Governor Eerie and strongly supported his actions. Tyndall wrote, "I cannot accept the Negro as the equal of an Englishman, nor admit that a Negro insurrection and an English insurrection ought to be treated in the same way. If the falling into the hands of a Jamaican Negro be a different thing from falling into the hands of an Englishman, then the conclusion is self-evident, that we are justified in going further to prevent the one calamity than to prevent the other." And that part really struck me because in just the same way that we are seeing where Palestinians have been consistently subjected to violence, by the occupying state. And yet when they rebel, it is seen as something completely different, like it is not seen in the same light. And if you paint them as different, in other words, these are not equals. And so they can't do to us what we do to them. If they do to us what we do to them, then they must be met with harsher measures, and it is therefore justified. Another similarity is the way that the protection of women, and in this case it was white women that needed to be protected from the savage sexual nature of the Negro. It was being branded about that what these black men wanted to do was to kill all the white men and take the white women for themselves to have sexual control over them. And so in that case, one of the main reasons that the cruelty needed to be exacted on the black population was to keep the black men in check, to protect the women. Right? This was one of the main themes that was being used to justify the cruelty that had taken place. European control in perpetuity was thus necessary to assist Africans to gradually manage their existential disabilities. Their innate flaws were to be found in their pathologically smaller brain conjoined with their pathologically larger genitalia. In other words, big wood, small brain. It would be comical if the events surrounding it were not so deviant and cruel. They were also afraid that the white woman may come to like having sex with black men, and they saw the white woman as the weaker sex. You know, they were the weak link. In other words, then the black men would be able to conquer them through the weakness of the white woman. And so everything that was done to keep the black men in check was a necessary part of protecting the white woman who they needed to conceive, who they needed to reproduce, and they needed to keep adding to their small numbers. Sexual relation invoked the deepest emotion in the white patriarchy because it was considered to be at the heart of the existence and continued supremacy of the European over the African, the civilized over the uncivilized, the light over darkness. I have heard those exact words uttered almost line for line since this war began. Palestinians have been likened to less than human beings, to animals. We have been told that not even the children, not even the babies are worth saving because all they will grow up to be are savages and animals. The exact same thing that has been said about black people for centuries. Palestinians' homes, universities, art, their farms, hospitals, everything is being wiped out. Even the cemeteries where the dead lay are being destroyed. It's history repeating itself all over again. U.S. Navy Commander Andrew Hull Foote wrote in 1854, "If all that Negroes of all generations have ever done were to be obliterated from recollection forever, the world would lose no great truth, no profitable art, no exemplary form of life. The loss of all that is African would offer no memorable deduction from anything but the earth's black catalogue of crimes." Everything that the Europeans accused the Africans of doing, they had done themselves and had conjured up these imaginings in their racist minds. By relating to Africans on the basis of that racist construct, Governor Eerie could commit no crime against African Jamaicans, and yet the tradition of civilized Europe, which he represented, committed some of the most wanton, savage, barbarous, and gruesome acts of cruelty ever visited on the Jamaican people. Tell me if what we are witnessing in Gaza is different from what I just described.